everyone. You can say I have a guest.
Hi there.
This is Allison Turquoise. You might have seen her on Instagram as Allison Turquoise, and she posts some really interesting stuff about beauty packaging because she's a beauty packaging director.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. I feel like there's so much about beauty packaging that people don't know, and I even didn't know until I actually started a brand and started to really dig into this. I think the question I see the most around just packaging in general, but specifically in the beauty industry, is around sustainability. So the hard-hitting question here is, you know what I'm going to ask?
Yes, I do.
Can beauty packaging actually be sustainable?
That's a great question. It's a question on everyone's mind. I think in order to really have a nuanced conversation about sustainability in the beauty industry, we have to take a step back and realize that every single package on the beauty market is going to have an environmental burden. So if we're going to have this conversation, we have to come faced with that harsh reality. My personal belief is that instead of painting a black and white narrative that a package either is or isn't sustainable, we really need to focus more on reducing the environmental impact of each of the packages that we're putting out onto the market.
So are you saying like literally reducing the amount of packaging?
That's one strategy. So what you're referring to, reducing the material used, there's a term for that actually, and it's called lightweighting. So that's actually reducing the amount of material and parts used to produce a package. And it's a great way to reduce the environmental impact of a package by reducing the materials. Because when we're thinking about material, the material has waste associated with it, and it also has carbon emissions. And I feel like carbon emissions is something that's not being talked about as much as it should be. So for example, I have this Cocoa Kind tube here, which is a lightweighted tube. So this tube cap and sleeve are fused directly together, and the cap is significantly reduced, as you can see. It's like a little baby cap.
Well, at first I remember seeing this kind of packaging like in European products.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's ugly. And then like I really kind of like changed my mindset around this and saw it more so as, wait, that is interesting because it's reducing the amount of material.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And lightweighting is a really effective strategy for
lightweighting. I like this.
For reducing the environmental burden of a package. So for example, when we benchmark this to an industry standard tube, this tube reduces the amount of material used by 55%.
Really?
Yeah. You might be confused when you're looking at it and you say 55%. We're just changing the cap of it. But when you think about material, we are calculating that based on weight, not the visual size of it. So that's something important to note. But yeah, this reduction of the cap size and fusing it directly to the tube sleeve has a huge impact on the amount of material used and carbon emissions generated during manufacturing.
So hopefully this will be the way of the future. Even my brand will have to look into this.
Yes, that would be amazing.
What are other ways to be sustainable? For instance, like refillable packaging. We're seeing a big trend in this.
Yes. Refills are a really interesting sustainability strategy, and there's actually a few ways to approach it. The most traditional way right now is what I call a bottle in a bottle refill, which in my opinion tends to be one of the least effective, not because it's not a good idea in theory, but because it relies so heavily on consumer adoption to make a repurchase, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times before you start to see any reduction in material waste or carbon emissions.
Got it. So the only way it's really going to work is if this is your ride or die product.
Yes.
Oh, I love this though.
So thankfully, I'm using this one as an example because I absolutely love this moisturizer. I will definitely be purchasing the refill multiple times. So as a consumer using this product, I will see the environmental benefits per se of this refill system. However, Susan, if you try this product and let's say you even purchase the refill once, and then you ultimately decide, it's not a good fit for your skin type, there's no environmental benefits to this outer refill keepsake component.
I see. And can it maybe potentially add more waste than a regular product could?
Yes, it can. So initially, if you look at refills, bottle in a bottle, it's essentially 2 separate packages. Initially, refills do generate more material and oftentimes more carbon emissions from raw material extraction and manufacturing than just standard single-use packaging. So if a brand launches a refill and they do not have the consumer repurchase rate to support it, ultimately it can actually lead to more waste.
And not to blame like a brand in beauty is doing a really great job. And like you said, I've seen so many people say that they love this moisturizer so much. I can see that being a really helpful way to not only cut costs on the consumer side, because when you start buying the refillables, they're slightly more affordable. You also then are cutting down on the environmental burden, I suppose. But like you said, it can be a little bit heavier. Sometimes for the brand, it can be a little bit more expensive. It can actually be a cost that gets put onto the consumer.
Yeah.
All right, so sticking to the refill topic, because I just feel like we're going to continue seeing this trend no matter what, because brands just really like it. Yeah. It's a really good talking point too for them, I feel like. So besides like making sure a product is for sure a holy grail product, what are other ways that brands can be more mindful when it comes to refillable packaging?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So moving away from the bottle in the bottle approach to refills.
Can I steal this from you? I've been wanting to try it.
Another way to implement refills in a way that I think is more effective is to actually reduce the amount of material used in the refill itself. So this is a really interesting refill system. This is probably one of the favorite ones that I've seen on the market. So this one's almost a hybrid approach in the sense that you're still inserting it into a keepsake component. But as you can see, this is a pouch. There's a huge reduction in material use compared to this plastic inner of the bottle and the bottle refill. You can already see visually that there's going to be a reduction in material.
Right, because this is a hard plastic, and that's like what is that?
This is a pouch. So I believe this one is technically still a plastic pouch. So there is plastic use in this, but it's a huge reduction compared to this rigid plastic refill. If we're looking at biodegradability and then furthermore compostability, there is some really interesting innovation happening. However, as you'll see with this Half Magic Beauty example, there is a bit of a trade-off. So this is made from potato starch and plant cellulose. So it is fully compostable in an at-home composter, which is huge.
Oh wait, I have one too.
Oh, amazing. Well, then you can
I could throw that into my
absolutely do that. So this is fully compostable, but as you can see, if you are interacting with this on a daily basis, there's going to be some wear and tear. So there's a little bit of a trade-off regarding durability and actually protecting certain formulas. This works fine for a powder blush. However, you would not want to pair this with an OTC formula like a sunscreen, because obviously maintaining that formula integrity is absolutely paramount.
Right.
So there's definitely some limitations once we start getting into biodegradable or compostable materials.
Is this pouched though? Is this going to keep it? Like, is it going to eventually start to eat through it?
No. So one way that pouches are being utilized is a lot of times they will still have a layer of plastic or sometimes foil in order for it to maintain its shape and not start to crumble when it comes in contact with the formula. Speaking of which, this is kind of in a similar vein. So this is a carton, as you can tell, like a milk carton. So it's predominantly made of paper, which, as many of you have probably found out, when you get paper wet, it crumbles. So in order to utilize this predominantly paper carton, there's a very thin layer of plastic and foil inside of it so that it's technically shower safe. So I have this at home in my shower. It's completely fine.
Right.
But I think it's kind of interesting because so many consumers are pushing for completely monomaterial packaging that's fully recyclable. But a lot of times there's going to be a trade-off with that. So sometimes you do need to implement a small amount of plastic or foil in order to help the package maintain its integrity and ultimately protect the product formula, which is the primary function of packaging.
Yep. There's also the question of glass versus plastic and what's better.
I'm so glad you brought up this whole plastic versus glass narrative. I feel like this is being perpetuated in the media a lot. And I feel like plastic has really been positioned as inherently bad. So I want to take this opportunity to just address some of the nuances that I don't think a lot of consumers and brands are aware of. So to your point, glass is much heavier than plastic. So there are going to be more carbon emissions generated during transportation. But if we look even earlier into the product's life cycle, so raw material extraction and manufacturing, glass usually generates more carbon emissions than plastic.
Right, I know this.
And not just by a smidge, pretty significantly. So whenever we're having this conversation about plastic and glass, and it's, plastic is bad and glass is good, again, we have to get into the nitty-gritty nuances of it. Another thing that's really interesting in how these materials are being presented to beauty consumers is there's such an emphasis on end of life. So recyclability. Understandably, because it's really the only part of the life cycle analysis that consumers have control over. Glass is usually recycled at around a rate of 25%.
Okay.
Plastic is recycled at a rate of about 9%.
Really?
Yes.
You would think it'd be more.
You would think. You would think. One thing to note, though, is that there's different types of plastic that the EPA, unfortunately, is not accounting for each of the different plastics recycling rates. So that number is a little bit skewed.
Got it.
But if we're even going to take that at face value, if you're manufacturing a glass jar and at the front of the life cycle, raw material extraction and manufacturing, it's emitting more carbon emissions, but you think it's going to make up for it once it's recycled.
Yeah.
It's still only being recycled at a 25%. That's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Putting out a package that emits more carbon emissions with no real assurance that it's actually going to get recycled in the end.
Yeah.
So it's so nuanced. It's so tricky.
The other thing I've read is that most packaging just doesn't end up actually getting recycled.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. Let's
Oh
hear
boy.
it.
Okay, sure. So recyclability.
I assume you've had these conversations with a lot of brands, right?
I have.
Is this like the first thing that they do when they call you?
This is usually the topic of conversation for most brands when they're thinking about how to implement more sustainable strategies in their packaging. Recyclability is really tricky because in theory, it's a great idea, but unfortunately in application, it's very difficult to ensure that packaging is actually getting recycled for a number of reasons. So there's the consumer factor to it.
Right.
Are consumers actually going to take the time to rinse out the packaging and put it in the proper disposal bin?
Right. And with some packaging, you have to like take it apart, do all that kind of stuff.
There's disassembling, which is something that some consumers just aren't going to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of consumers just don't even know to do. But let's assume ideally that we have a very hyper-vigilant consumer who wants to ensure that the packaging gets recycled. So they, rinse it out and they properly dispose of it in their curbside recycling bin. There is no way to ensure that that's actually getting recycled, unfortunately. So
that's the worst part.
It is. It's so frustrating. So in the US, recycling facilities have different acceptance criteria. And that will vary by recycling facility and municipality.
Right.
So there's not a standardization.
So the city you live in
Yeah.
will also decide this.
Exactly. And some of the things that can impact acceptance criteria are things like size. So the general...
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Yes, exactly. The general rule of thumb is if a package is under 2 by 2 inches, it is not going to be able to be properly sorted once it enters the recycling facility, and therefore will most likely just end up being diverted to the landfill, even if it's made of recyclable material.
Okay.
Yes. This is a great example of a package that even if it was monomaterial, meaning it was made of only one material, and that material was a commonly recycled plastic like PET, PP, or HDPE, most likely it would not be recycled because it does not meet the 2 by 2 guideline. That is just a guideline, but generally speaking, unfortunately, the size would hinder this not recyclable.
I think people don't realize that if you throw your plastic packaging into the recycle bin and you haven't rinsed it out, if it hasn't been disassembled, meaning you didn't take this, take it apart, remove the parts that aren't recyclable, whatever it is, or separated them, there are not going to be people on the other end who are going to do it for you. So if you sent off your recyclables like this, it likely ends up in a landfill because you didn't do all the prep work. And that's where it falls apart.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where a lot of frustration, at least for me, lies because so many brands are implementing recyclability as their only sustainability strategy, which in my opinion puts all of the responsibility on the consumer to ensure it's recycled at end of life. And I don't really think it's fair to put that burden only on consumers. I really want to talk about size impression.
Yeah, let's talk about size impression. Not what you guys are thinking. Get your minds out of the gutter. But size impression is a huge deal in the beauty industry.
It is.
And consumers don't realize this. This is a huge deal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've been seeing a lot more conversations happening on social media about size impression and consumers starting to feel like they're being scammed by brands putting out kind of oversized packaging.
Which has happened since the dawn of beauty products.
Absolutely. So I brought some examples.
Okay.
So these two packages here.
Oh, I know this brand. This is Materia.
You and I both.
Yeah.
So these two packages here are obviously significantly different in size.
Yep.
However, if we look at the actual amount of product in each, they both have 50 mil.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've actually tried to say this to people because we get comments sometimes from people saying, I wish your moisturizers in the jar were bigger, that you offered more product. And then I'm like, actually, we're offering the same amount of product as most moisturizers in jars. Yeah. It just looks smaller. It's because we tried to do the lightweighting, which I didn't know was the actual term for it. But we tried to do lightweighting where we felt like we used just enough packaging to hold the product.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's so important to make consumers more aware of, because most consumers realistically are not reading the net weight.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of them will go purely based off of visuals. Yeah. So if these are two competing products and a consumer is trying to decide which one is going to be the better value for them, they're usually going to choose this one because it's bigger and they think they're getting more product.
Yep.
Even though it's the same exact amount of product.
Because it's like a mental play, right? All right, what do you have next for us?
Oh, this one is one of my favorites. I actually use it on a daily basis. Holy grail, but it's the Laneige Neo Blur.
Okay.
This compact is...
Oh, I've seen this.
Yes,
I've been wanting this Laneige product because of it. It's not available in the US.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Sorry to interrupt. I got excited.
It is so cool. This is a loose setting powder, which, as you can know, can be very, very messy. But this one has very small little slits in this plastic.
So the powder really doesn't get everywhere.
No, it doesn't. It's so easy to use. It's so mess-free, in my opinion.
Yes, it's a game changer.
It truly is. This is probably one of my favorite packaging innovations of the year that I've discovered.
Yeah. I can't think of any other brands that have used this yet.
I think there may have been some that have used it years ago, but I don't think it hit the US market to the same extent that this one has.
So you basically take the powder puff, there's a powder puff usually on the bottom, and then you just press it and you close it up when you're done with it, and no mess?
No mess.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Midday touch-ups are so much easier now.
Love. Okay, hit us with all the next stuff. I get excited seeing this kind of stuff. People go to shows, by the way. Shows just to see the cool innovation in packaging.
So this is a sunscreen compact. It's out of Korea, and this one is a grinding compact.
Oh, I thought we were gonna see like a cushion compact or something.
Yeah, no. So this one's really interesting in the sense that you actually will grind the product out.
Ooh, I love this.
So the sunscreen's basically a solid, and this grinding mechanism gives you a certain amount of product.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wait, can I touch it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Just now I'm curious about the
texture. Isn't the texture so interesting?
It's like my cheese that I've created. Oh my goodness. And so it melts down. Oh, and then it becomes creamy.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
Amazing. This is going to give me fluorescent cast. That's what I get. Oh gosh, yeah, you can see that.
Wow.
It turns fluorescent on me.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. You have a purple undertone now.
I do. Yeah, that's what happens with sunscreens. People don't realize it. I may be fair, but I still get a cast.
Yes.
What would be the benefits of this besides being cool, though?
Mostly just coolness. Yeah. Full transparency. Yes. So for that one, it's more innovative in a functional sense that you're able to get kind of a user experience that you're not able to with other more traditional packaging.
Yeah. Do you have another example of, I just saw her pick this up. I've seen this on social media also.
Yes.
Okay.
So this one is a very similar concept to the sunscreen compact with the grinding mechanism, but I think this one's actually more innovative because it actually helps to solve a consumer problem.
Okay.
So this one is a cleansing balm. And as you know, with cleansing balms, you usually have to dip your finger into them or have a small spatula.
And some people hate that.
Yes.
I hear people say this all the time that they hate it.
Exactly. So this one's interesting in the sense that it has the grinding mechanism. So you don't have to dig your fingers into the cleansing balm in order to get the product.
I've been wanting to feel this cleansing balm. People have been like, you need to try it, but I didn't want to just buy it purely for the packaging.
It's nice.
It's a nice cleansing balm.
It's very nice.
Oh, that melts right down. Well, now I guess I gotta buy it. I think that makes it more functional.
Yes, I agree.
The sunscreen one.
I agree.
All right, so I think we've covered a lot of beauty packaging topics. We can always bring you back if you guys want more. Ask the questions in the comments. But let's end this video on beauty packaging icks. Do you have any of those?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I actually saw a video, which is why I'm asking you this.
I only brought one with me today, but I feel like it's pretty universal in the beauty community.
Yeah.
I think we've all tried this product. It's gone viral multiple times.
Right.
It's a beautiful formula. I would use it every day if it wasn't in this god-awful packaging.
Okay.
So this is the L'Oreal Skin Tint.
Yep, I do love this formula.
I do too. But unfortunately, L'Oreal didn't invest in a wiper. Usually when you have a dropper like this, you will have a wiper. And the wiper's purpose is to actually wipe down the excess formula from around the pipette so you don't get this mess. L'Oreal did not invest in a wiper. And as such, you can see there's a huge amount of product collecting on the pipette itself and therefore spilling out around the
right, because when you
bottleneck.
put it back in, it just
spills over. Exactly. So this is an example of a packaging ick that I get so frustrated with. Either invest in a wiper, they literally cost a couple cents, or perhaps consider a pump. I know a lot of consumers love this product, but they say a dropper is just such a hindrance to using it on a daily basis.
I can see that. People don't realize that wipers are in a lot of products that use, especially in makeup. Mascaras.
Yes.
Super important.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, well, Allison, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Oh, yes, you can find me at Allison Turquoise on Instagram, TikTok.
All of the things?
All of the things, yes.
I love it. And obviously, you can hire her if you need your beauty packaging
Thank you, Susan.
done. People don't realize the process. You do not usually do this on your own. You reach out to somebody like Allison.
Absolutely.
And you tell her what you're working on, and she helps you find that packaging.
Yep, I do my best.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Allison. This was really informative.
Oh, yay, I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Susan.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.